It's going to be Adam Compton over here talking about finding your home in Infosec, specialize or not. So please give it up for Adam.
I never specified, so go for it. That's fine. Yeah, all right. So, first of all, I want to thank for all of you who have stuck around until 5 o'clock today to come in here. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But yeah, as it says, hopefully this is what you were expecting. I'm going to be going over just talking about picking up a career path, stuff like that in InfoSec, figuring out where you want to fit, where you belong, things of that nature. We're going to go over all this as we're going through it. So first of all, let's go over what are we going to be talking about today? What am I going to be talking about? What are we going to be doing here? First, I'm going to go over a little bit of the various. Apparently, I don't know. You want to take over? No, we're going to be going over some of the different career paths, things, or areas that you might want to move into in InfoSec. It's not going to be all-inclusive. We don't have time for that. We'll go over some of the more common ones that I've encountered. We'll share a few personal stories. I'll ask you all if you have any stories you'd like to contribute, things of that nature. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes through there with a few lessons learned, things of that, some good pointers along the way, and we'll see how everything works out. Hopefully this doesn't go overly too long and get everybody out of here on their way home today, but we'll see how it works out. So who is this talk targeted toward? It can actually be used by anybody who wants to use it, obviously, but I wrote it in the mindset of somebody wanting to get into InfoSec, wanting to do a career change from one area of specialization in InfoSec to another, things of this nature. It's somebody who's wanting to see other options, other opportunities within InfoSec to figure out where they want to move to, where they feel they might fit better, whatever the case is. In order to do that, I'll share some personal experiences with the different career paths I'm talking about, my own experience. I'm jumping back and forth between some of those. And as I said before, if you have anything you want to contribute as we're going through, I'm not going to mind that. If you want to speak up, raise your hand, whatever, or at the end there'll be a Q&A if you all want to wait until then. Not a problem for me. A little bit about me. Yes, I got a new picture this time. Thank you, AI art generation. You can get amazing stuff. I put in, what was it like? Slightly overweight hillbilly in a lab in a 1940s art style or something like that. That's what it came up with. I'm like, hey, I like that one. I was just goofing around with that at home one night. So who am I? I am a principal security consultant for Trusted Sec. You might have heard of them. Thank you. Yes, he's a good guy. I like him. I've been working there for going on 5 years, I think. I think that's right. It's been a while now. But over my career, I've been doing pen testing, InfoSec, research, what have you, for well over 20 years now, going on 25 probably. In that time, I've done a little bit of everything. Code development, research, pen testing, Windows, social engineering, web app design, web app testing, a little bit of all of it. I've tested a lot of it over there. I've contributed to some incident response. I've caused some incident response. It's true, I have. I didn't mean to, but I pointed out where there should be incident response because I've been on a system when I realized there was somebody else already on the system. There's all kind of things happening there. Over 20, 25 years, you come across a lot of odd things out there, but this is all just to say that anything I'm saying is built on my experience. You get somebody else up here with more or less the same experience as I do, they might have different views of it even. It's just built on what I've experienced and what I've seen in my time. So the main premise of this is trying to find your place in information security and InfoSec. And the question is why is this important? Why is this something that you should be concerned about? I'll go ahead and get it off the top of my head. If you're really just looking after the best paycheck possible, Find the field that is easiest for you and that pays the most and go with that. Now, if you want something that is going to be challenging, thought-provocative, get you engaged and possibly cause you to be more happy with your job, then you start thinking about some of these other aspects that we're going to cover as things that are going to challenge you, things that make you want to get up in the morning and go to work, things that are going to make you enhance your skill set, use your skill set, make use of what you have, and make you want to work harder at it. There's all kind of different things in there. Like I've picked both paths over the years. I've went the easy route when I was on burnout, and then I went and revamped in there and got hard into it again. And it's easy to fall into one or the other, definitely fall into the complacency, which we'll talk about. But it's really, you want to find something that's challenging and it's going to help stave off some of those possible side effects down the road. And if it's something that you really enjoy, you're going to try harder at. And if it's something you're trying hard at, you have more chance potentially of improvement, of job opportunities, of promotions, of things like that, because you're actually wanting to try in the position. And if you're just doing what it takes just to get by, you're just going to get what it takes to get by for most times. So, as I said at the beginning, the landscape of information security is massive. We're not going to be talking about everything out there. These are the areas that I've had the most experience with over my career. Things like penetration testing, some red teaming, or adversarial engagements, or how you want to phrase it, incident response, defensive security, or blue teaming, a lot of people call it, and finally research and development. There's going to be all kind of other areas in there, whether it is, I don't know, policy or auditing or any number of other things, or just system administration or what have you. There's lots of other categories in there and subcategories of these. Penetration testing, for one, is a massive collection of a lot of different small ones in there. It's just a generalized term that we use for it. But we're going to try to dive into these in particular, talking about them just to give you a feel, because I think they give a pretty good breadth of the field for what most people think of when they come into Infosec, especially at conferences, looking for getting that challenge, dealing with hackers, either being the hacker or defending against the hacker, things of that nature. So, where's Adrian at? Oh, he's not in here. I was going to say, I get to use our old stickers. We came up with those years and years ago. But so for penetration testing, what is penetration testing? This is not going to be a hard, fast definition up here. This is more or less what me, some of the team members I have that work with me, we just kind of came to an agreement like this sort of feels right. You ask 10 different people, you're going to get 12 different definitions of what pen testing is. It's all across the board. But effectively, it boils down to penetration testing is simulating an active attack either from an external entity or an insider threat that is trying to exploit and leverage company resources to some end, whether that's to get data off of it, compromise the systems, maintain presence, whatever. You're trying to gain access from that perspective, but you're also trying to get as many different paths along that way as possible within a set time frame. This is what separates pen testing a lot from red teaming, which we'll talk about in a minute. Is a lot of times pen testing is, majority of the time is set as a time boxed engagement, or generally it is, saying over the next 2 weeks you're going to be testing this web application, you're going to be testing this internal network, this external set of IP addresses, whatever. You have a set time frame, and the goal there is to not just test it from an active attacker perspective, but try to identify as many actionable findings as you can in there. Can I get cross-site scripting that allows me to get some cookie information off of a browser? Can I do a SQL injection that allows me to get remote shell execution on the MySQL database back in? Internally, can I guess a password that allows me to get access to Active Directory certificate services, to find an exploit to get domain admin? It's these actionable things you're doing. And it's not just, can I get to domain admin and I'm done? It's how many ways can I do this within the time allowance so that I can hand this back to the customer and say, look, this is what we did, this is how you can improve, good. Now with that, there's a few things that go hand in hand in there. One of them is that, or some of the responsibilities are, I threw OSINT in there because I harp on this a lot. Make sure that you know the target you're going after is the target you're supposed to be going after. That definitely falls within OSINT. Yes, you can use OSINT for social engineering and a bunch of other attacks, but just for an external assessment, too many times have I been given an external set of ranges and the customer says, that's it. And I look at it, I'm like, you're a legal firm. These are elementary school addresses. This doesn't match up. Oh, I typoed that or I copy and pasted it wrong. You do some level of sanity check. OSINT, that's where that comes into play a little bit. Plus it does help with password guessing and all that. It's just something you should be comfortable with doing internet research effectively. You should be good at checking for misconfigurations and vulnerabilities, both manually and scripted if need be, exploiting them where possible, doing a lot of manual testing. This isn't a vulnerability assessment. Those typically are type in IP addresses, hit go, give report. This is a much more manual, much more interactive process where you're doing the task as opposed to just trying to report on it. And then of course, finally, reporting is going to be across the board on all these. You have to be good at reporting. Whether that reporting is writing this massive report, 100-page, 200-page report that you give to the customer that talks about here's what we did, here's all the findings, how you can reproduce it, all that. Or it might just be a memo you're giving to your boss because you're doing an internal audit or something. Whatever it is, you got to be working toward those. Those are some good responsibilities as well as skills that is going to come into play with pen testing. What are some of the skills that have to go along with that? You have to be curious. You have to have determination. Things that you're wanting to find out why. Like you're looking at a website and you think that something's not quite right on there, but you don't have an easy fit for it, an easy fix or easy finding. Do you just quit and move on? Or do you dig at it a little bit and see what you can come up with? Generally speaking, you do need to have that determination, that curiosity to figure out what is going on there, how can I exploit it and move forward. Having some understanding of various protocols. I'm not talking about like, are you talking about, token ring and stuff like that? Well, yes, that does come into play. I'm meaning more like various chat protocols, VoIP protocols, just standard communication protocols on the network level. How does the handshakes work? Things of that nature. You need to understand to some degree how all of that works. You don't have to be able to break it down to the byte level and reproduce it yourself, but just understand the concepts of it. Here's a big one across the board on all these, which will apply, is accuracy and integrity. Accuracy, be able to reproduce what you've done. Be able to minimize the number of false positives and false negatives that you're reporting to the customer. Because if you're just giving them a bunch of data and you don't know if it's very accurate or not, it's not going to be worth their money. So you have to be a little accurate on that. And integrity, if they do catch you on something that was wrong, don't try to pass the blame off to somebody else. Just say, yeah, I did it. I'm sorry. This was the data I had. This is why I thought this. I was wrong, and move on with it. Have some integrity about it. Accept blame where blame is due. Accept accommodations otherwise, scripting. Programming is not required for pen testing. It will make your job a lot easier in a lot of ways if you can do at least basic scripting, whether that is in Bash or whatever the case is for you in .NET or what have you. If you can do some level of scripting, that makes your job significantly easier in a lot of ways. It helps reduce a lot of the mundanity of what you're working on. But now, if you do have some good programming skills, you can write out some nice new tools to help automate stuff, but it's not a requirement. I'm not a huge one for certs in general. I don't think they're necessary. I don't necessarily have any myself. But if you do want to go after a cert for pen testing, and for a number of these, the OSCP is a good one. It's not going to be a perfect representation of pen testing or red teaming or anything, but it does show competency in some of the core skill sets, as well as the determination to work through it. Same with GPen to a certain degree. And there's a number of other ones out there. From a managerial perspective, getting your CISSP. is a big one. Does it show that you have competency in the technical aspect? Not really. But does it show that you have the determination to sit through and study that for the 4 to 6 hour test it is? Yes, it does. And you do get a breadth of knowledge in there, but it's not a really overly used one, but it is something that managers and corporations do look for. So keep that in mind. With that out of the way, we're moving on to red teaming. Any questions on pen testing before we move on? Awesome. Red teaming, regardless of what you call it, you want to call it an adversarial simulation, TAO, red team, it's all effectively the same thing. This definition was given to me in some form by Jason Lang, our in-house red team lead, so blame him if that doesn't make sense. Actually, it's my fault for copying and pasting it over here, but it's a goal-oriented, targeted adversarial simulation against a given scope, generally a very wide scope, that is trying to obtain a specific goal while also validating their defenses and capabilities. There's a lot of it in there. A lot of it can be packed into that one sentence, but it's effectively that. Now, what are some of the responsibilities that come along with red teaming? Well, as I said before, you have accountability, you have integrity, you have all that stuff that I talked about before. Same thing. But here, a lot of what is going to be key to a good red team is not just your skill set, but your communication skills, your soft skills, your what people call soft skills, your personal skills, interpersonal, your human skills. Because a lot of this is also going to be trying to focus and guide the customer into what would be an appropriate scope, an appropriate tasking for this engagement. Yes, you want to have a red team, but you don't want to have any social engineering, you don't want web apps, you don't want physical, you don't like. If you want a red team, a lot of this gets included. If you don't want this, you're looking at something more like an assumed breach or a pen test. So you kind of help negotiate that, you work with them to understand this. And a lot of times also you're having to have that interpersonal because you're going to be telling the customer that their baby is ugly. So you have to do that in a nice way possible without them getting mad at you. So there's a lot of this back and forth. Along with that does come the full management leadership there, engagement, where you're going to have to help set expectations for the customer. You're going to tell them like, oh, you want the full gambit, you want all this, but you want it done in 3 days. Not going to happen. We're going to do this over the course of this month, or we're going to do it over the next 6 weeks, and we're going to work on this, and you're going to expect to see some of this. You're going to possibly expect to see some phishing, us on site trying to get into your building. You're going to expect a lot of, you're working with expectations of what the customer can and can't allow, what you're wanting to do, and you're trying to work with that. Even after it goes past sales, you're still negotiating that to a little bit because the customer always has what they want, and then you have the team that says what we can do. And there's a lot of that back and forth. And as I said, at TrustedSec in particular, among other companies, red teaming is considered more full scope than very targeted. You are going after all these other aspects. If I can get in through a web app, great. But maybe I have to use social engineering and get a pivot to the inside where I can set up a beacon and I can start going that way. Maybe I break into their data center or sneak my way into the data center, set up a remote access device in there that allows me access. There's all these different components that work into it that facilitate that full scope. A lot of that comes as responsibilities and tasks that you might have to do during a red team. Here, coding is much more critical to a certain degree. You have to be able to, on the fly, modify some scripts, edit some scripts, create some scripts if necessary. Obviously, you do need the same pen testing skills as you did before. They're just done slightly differently. In particular, much slower. Pen test, you have 1 week to test 5,000 systems. Red team, I need to get access to that data and that table on that database on that one system. I have 6 weeks. I take my time. I live within the noise. I live within the expected communications of the network. I don't want to get detected. If I do get detected now, that's fine. I don't mind getting detected. I try not to get detected, but if I do get detected, what do we have?
They're getting ready to do last call. and you got a bunch of tickets to give out.
All right. Oh my God, real.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I'll come to this in just a second here.
I definitely threw a wrench in your.
It's okay, man. Don't worry. I blame you. But no, really, it's you're dealing with all these different aspects of it. Then it comes also to like that curiosity, the fearlessness. You're gonna come across situations where like I have no way to go further unless maybe I exploit that VoIP device. Well, do I have something that I can do with that? I don't know. Let's try it. There's this new technique I want to try out. You got to be willing to fail, but try to fail quietly if possible, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of that back and forth. The goal is to get the end result, but anytime you can tell the customer that they have security precautions in place that are detecting and alerting or preventing you, that's a great finding for the customer. It's justification that their efforts are working, but you're still going to work to get around it and what have you. Yeah, there's a lot more that can go on in here. Need to move on, more slides. I was told that some of the best search for this are OSCP again, OSEP. Both of those are from offensive security. OSEP is, OSCP makes sense. Offensive security professional. Got it. OSEP stands for Offensive Advanced Evasion Techniques and Breaching Defenses. That really spells OSCP. I don't get it, but hey, that's what they call it. And CRTO is Certified Red Team Operator. I was told all of those work well. I agree with it. I do defer to Lang on that, but I do agree with every one of those. Those are good certs to have. Are they requirements? No. Capability is the requirement. Certs just help illustrate it if you don't have much background, history, things of that nature to work with. So, incident response. It's what happens when you don't get the pen test and the red team and somebody does come in and break your system. So, incident response is, as it says there, is the process of detecting, analyzing, and responding to security incidents in an organization. It is reactive, meaning something happens, they come in and fix it or come in and diagnose it. As you would expect, the responsibilities here are being able to read logs, being able to understand how certain attacks happen, which means you have to be familiar with many of the TTPs that the red team, pen testers, people like that make use of. You have to understand that so you can piece together attack chains, understand how it works, understand what other systems might be involved, things of that nature. You need to be able to contain, eradicate, and perform recovery, as well as give recommendations on how to do that. Most of the time you're giving recommendations. A lot of times also the customer's going to say, well, can you help us with this? And either that team will help or you might have another team in-house that can help with it, what have you. I do like that next to bottom line right there that was given to me. You need to be able to, at this level in particular, because you're dealing with really angry C-level people trying to figure out why their hundreds of thousands of dollars of training and equipment and all that didn't stop this. So you're trying to explain to them in friendly terms, in C-level tech speak, why this happened. You're trying to translate the very technical to them and vice versa to make sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody's understanding everything. Many times as pen testers, we get bogged down in that and we're like, and we say that at the very high level, we might just have a very short executive summary where it's like, okay, yeah, we did this, and we compromised it. And then we'll have a lot of really detailed stuff in the report. Incident response has to balance that a lot more because of the nature of it and the money involved in a lot of cases. Stay calm under pressure, obviously it makes sense. Be good at computer network forensics. Again, good skills, it's incident response, what would you expect? Again, communications, you have to be able to do that communication. You're a lot more customer facing than the red team, than the pen testers are most of the time. You're wanting to talk to the customer, or if you're an in-house incident response, you need to be able to talk to your C-level and talk to the other branch managers and the division chiefs and all that to figure out what's going on and get everybody communicating together. Speaking of which, teamwork. you have to collaborate with not only your team, maybe the blue team, maybe the development team, maybe a bunch of other people to get everybody talking together and not wanting to kill each other and point blame on everybody else. So you have to sort of be that ringleader, the mitigator. Many times also you've got to be that person that you're just letting the sysadmin vent to, because they're like, I knew this was going to happen. I told them 100 times. You're like, yeah, it's not happening the case right now, but get it off your chest so we can move on. You have to be sort of that bar manager sort of guy there, and or gal, and let it go on. And as far as certs go on this one, Tyler mentioned the SANS forensics and IR certs programs. He said we're good ones to go after, as well as pretty much anything from the CISA.gov or US certs. Be aware of those. Go down that way. So with a lot of these, certificates aren't required, as I said before. A lot of companies will look for them, but appropriate experience and capability outweighs the certs. Now, it might get your foot in the door, get you past that first filter of resume filter, but I've had one carried cert over my career, and that was a CISSP, and that was because I was mandated it when I was at the Department of Defense. That was it. I haven't maintained it, and I let it slip and all that. So with appropriate experience and all that, you can get away with it. If you are just starting out, you might want to get your OSCP or an appropriate one to get that foot in the door at least. Here's one that doesn't really fit on in-house stuff too much, but it's more for consulting services, and that's usually going to be your research and development. This is your team that is, if you're a consultancy, they're the ones who are building out the tools, building out the payloads, the attacks, the exploits that your red team or your pen test or whoever's going to be making use of. They're the ones doing that. And it's their job to make your other team members be able to do their job more efficiently and more consistently and technically better than the other person down the street. It's the differentiator in there. Responsibilities, as you'd expect, is going to be tool development, exploit research, exploit development, the ability to go out and research multiple technologies, understand how they would fit in or replace other technologies that you're already aware of to fulfill better, new or different TTPs, how they're going to work in this whole architecture space. Skills that you're going to need to be aware of are, as he says, critical thinking, and a word in here I copied and put in here because I've not seen it in use anywhere else, and Carlos definitely wrote it himself, which is funny because I have never heard him say it himself either, but have developed autodidact skills. I had to look it up. I'm a hillbilly, I'm sorry, I don't know what that word means. I'm like, really? I'm gonna look that up. It's basically the ability to do it on your own. Be a self-starter, be a self-educator. So be able to go out there and look for new technologies, look for new attacks, look for all that, and be willing to put in the effort yourself without being pushed by your manager to do it. You need to have that drive to do it. That's a critical skill in researching and development. Of course, being able to develop, be flexible across multiple languages. You're not always going to be developing just in C. You might want to have a handful of languages under your belt, maybe C, maybe Go, .NET, what have you. A few of them in there would be good. We're almost done with this. This is the last one, I promise, and then we'll get into the other fun stuff. Defensive security blue teaming. You are the anti-hacker, which means you have to be a better hacker than the hacker. What do I mean by that? Well, in order to stop something, yes, you can be sort of that proactive and like, well, I locked all my doors. You can't get in. Well, what if they come in with an axe? Well, maybe I want to be able to do this. Or what if they come in with this? You have to understand the different attacks within reason. You don't have to be a complete expert, but the more you know, the more you can defend against. You have to understand how the hackers, how the red team, how the pen testers are going to come in and try to exploit you. It might just be as much as I need to take all my internet presence offline, or I need to outsource it and not even have it connected to my internal network, or I just need a split DNS. whatever it is in your scenario, whatever it is, be aware of that. Be aware of how everything in your environment can be used against you and how to defend against that. Make sure that you have proper logging. You're the one responsible. You're the guard dog. You're the guard dog who's trying to prevent the bad guys from getting in. And then once they get in, it's also your job to try to fix what they did against you. So a lot of time the blue team will work with incident response. From a consultancy point of view, when a red team or a pen tester works with an in-house blue team, we usually call that a purple team. And that's where we do a simulated red team, where we're like, okay, we're going to try this attack. Can you detect that? Does your SIEM detect this? Are you getting these alerts? And it's sort of an educational process there. Great benefit, great use. I've been on several of those. It's very useful. And then once that's done, you might go back and have another red team, actual red team happen to see how well your team learned from that, how much has that improved your response capability, things of that nature. But among all of these, personally, I don't think blue teaming is the most exciting. You might say differently, but it is it's probably the most important one, because if you can prevent something bad from happening, then the rest of it doesn't matter. Incident response doesn't need to be there. If you can prevent their red team from getting in, then great. If you're locked it down to the point where no one can do anything, you're doing an amazing job, and my hat's off to you. It is an insanely difficult job because you're always on an uphill battle trying to prevent everything, where the attacker is just trying to find that one thing. So much different scale of attack and capability there. A great defender, great blue teamer, in my opinion, would make an amazing offensive person as well. So keep that in mind. Skills, being able to analyze traffic, knowledge of OS internals, whatever your OSs are in-house. Are you purely a Microsoft shop? Do you have Mac OS X? Do you have, or Mac OS? Do you have Linux? What do you have? Understand what you have, understand how you can report on it, how you can make detections, how you can log, how you can secure. You have to understand a lot of this. I'll let you read the rest there. You have to be able to perform some level incident response before you outsource to somebody that's on a retainer for you or something that's going to do more invasive incident response. But you have to be able to do some of that yourself as well. So all of that said, I think we're down to the last 15, 20 minutes. We're doing good. I have just a few slides left here. A little bit about my journey, where all this comes from me, and definitely to tell you that your journey is going to be completely different than mine. Some of you, this is also to illustrate that it doesn't matter what your background is, you can always find a place. It might be completely by happenstance, it might be by design. Either way, you have the room to move, you have the room to expand. I started out when I was way little. Parents, for whatever reason, had a stroke of insight and bought me a computer, a little Commodore 64 when I was a wee little guy. Loved it, got into it, did computers all the way through school, college, did an internship at a Department of Defense facility, loved it, got experience in there. When I graduated, I got a job offer from them. I'm like, great, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna be a developer and a system administrator. That's what I wanted to do. I show up and they're like, great, you're here. That office doesn't exist anymore. It got reorged. Anybody who's been in the military or government agencies knows that reorgs happen quite often, and my office got reorged out of existence. So I had a job offer. I had what they call, I can't remember the term now. It's a billet. I had a billet, so I had a job. I just didn't have an office to go to. They're like, okay, you can stay here for about 2 weeks while you interview around inside the agency here to find you a place. And one of the first places that responded to me, did an interview with me, and I liked them, was what was called the in-house, this particular blue team. It's what we call pen testing now, but they call it blue teaming. I'm like, sure, that sounds fun. Why not? So I went over there and I sat down, and the first month was, here's all these systems, install them, build yourself a lab. Okay, here's all of our tools. Take those, use them against your lab. 2 or 3 months in, it's like, okay, we're going out for a pen test. You're coming with us. And I was really just thrown into it. I knew how to build the lab. I knew how to do all that, but honestly, before this, I didn't even know pen testing was a thing. So I kind of fell into that, and then I loved it. But over the years, I've learned that, sure, I might be doing some social engineering. Not the biggest fan of social engineering. It just isn't my cup of tea. I'm sorry. So I try to veer away from those. Web app testing, I'm okay at it. Not my greatest strong suit. I'm more on the internal and external pen testing. Not really the web apps. I can do it, but there's definitely people better than me. So I try to fill that out, and whenever I'm switching jobs, as I say, yes, I've moved jobs 5 times since then. That is something else. Don't be afraid to move jobs if you need to. If you feel that you're stagnating in a current job, a current position, ask if, even, it doesn't have to be to a new company. If you're an organization and you're on the blue team and you're thinking that, I've done this, it's not really filling my need anymore, we do have a in-house assessment team, pen test team, whatever. Talk to your bosses, talk to their bosses. Maybe they'll let you just shift over and spend some time over there to see if that's really what you want. If it is, great, move full-time or do what you need to. But yes, during this time, I did spend way too much time at certain companies out of a misplaced sense of loyalty to the company. And the company wasn't necessarily loyal to me. So that's another thing I would say as a lesson learned. Be loyal to yourself and your future. It comes before whoever the company is. And that's a whole nother talk. I won't get into that right now, but it's basically you're responsible for your own future, your own guidelines and all that. And it's never too late to switch. Well, I guess if you're dead, it's too late, but it don't really matter then, but either way. Overcoming challenges. Stay open to opportunities is the main thing I can tell you here. Is the first one. There's always going to be new challenges coming along. There's always going to be new things that pop up. Maybe some new, I don't know, AI pen testing, AI attacks are going to be a next big hot thing. Your organization might be standing that up. If that sounds interesting to you, ask if you can be part of that fledgling team. Maybe that's going to be the thing that really sets you apart, the thing that you really like. Maybe do research on it yourself and try to set yourself apart from others. Whatever it is, be open to any new opportunity that comes out there. It might not be the thing for you, but just be aware of it. Don't close yourself off to it flat out. One of the other things I'd say is, and I don't have a solid answer for this one, do I diversify or do I focus? I try to hedge and say do both. Within reason, like, do I want to be a jack of all and like try to learn everything I can about everything out there? You're going to fail because you can't learn everything about everything, but you can become knowledgeable to a certain level about all the different disciplines, all the different fields and all that. Or you can be this person who says, I'm going to learn everything there is about attacking, reverse engineering, exploiting Nokia phones, and just deep dive on that. I'm sure there's a position for that person out there somewhere, and they're going to be extremely well paid, but you don't have much lateral movement at that. So personally, the way I go about it is I try to be as knowledgeable as I can about the other disciplines while still trying to get very focused into pen testing and a certain aspect of pen testing at that, which is external and internal pen testing and working with that. If other new attacks come out in, I don't know, new reverse engineering tool, back when Gahedra came out, I think that's pronounced right. I went and checked it out. I looked at it, tried it out, so I'm familiar with what it is if somebody mentions it. I'm not going to be using it on a day-to-day basis, but I still wanted to know about it. If a new attack comes out that is not something that the customers I typically see are going to have, but I still read it just in case the attack techniques, the concept behind it might be applicable to my environment. I still go out and try to read about it if it's not 100% relatable to me, just in case I can glean something from it, or if I'm talking to somebody later and they bring it up, I can be knowledgeable of it. Dissecting job postings and descriptions. If you're looking for a job out there, be able to, a critical skill is to be able to look at that job posting and figure out exactly what they're wanting out of that. Being able to dissect some of their language. There's whole seminars on this, whole classes on being able to do this. I'm not going to cover it here. There's books on it. There's other conference talks on it. By all means, go out, see if you can find some of those, watch those. But it basically boils down to there's certain kind of keywords that you'll see in job postings that are red flags that might be things that you might not want to be part of that company based on the way that they phrase some things. Or it might be that we're definitely looking for somebody that has .NET framework experience. If you have no programming experience whatsoever, that might not be the best job for you to apply to. If you have C++ experience, maybe some Visual Basic experience in there, it might be something that you can piece together, something that you can work with. Maybe it's something that you can negotiate with the customer that you might get a training class right up front to get you ramped up. Maybe that's something you can work with. There's certain leniencies in there on a lot of these. It's important to be able to read a job description and try to figure out exactly what it is they're wanting and where you might be able to fit in, and if it's even a good job fit for you. I'm a huge proponent of that last one. I spent the first 10 years of my life doing pen testing for the federal government. When I get done with the end of the day, I go home. My day is done. I work my 8 hours, I'm home. I have to be. Government won't pay me anymore. So then I see all these young guys out there, and anybody out there, anybody getting into the field, they're like, I have to work 60 hours, 80 hours, 100 hours a week to show my worth. I'm like, do a good job and show your worth. Show your determination. Show your eagerness. Don't show them that you are willing to die for the job. You have to find that work-life balance or you will burn out. You will get sick. You will start to hate your job after a certain point in time. You have to give time to yourself. If you're wanting to be in the field for any bit of longevity, pace yourself. It's not a race. You can treat it as such, and that's on you. My personal recommendation is pace yourself. Try to stick to a reasonable number of work hours. Fluctuate as you need to, but I definitely say people who are working 80 to 100 hours, probably working a few too many hours, unless it is your company and you're the CEO or you're the startup president or whatever, more power to you, but your body's gonna feel it. And the older you get, it's not healthy. You're not gonna last long. Lessons learned. I just have a few slides left here. Stay open to new possibilities. One of my jobs, I was on the brink of burnout. I was actually burned out at this point already. I was out at DEF CON, ran into somebody I knew from many, many years ago who now was a co-owner of a company. Told me that, hey, he just ran into me, he recognized me, and we're talking. He's like, are you still doing pen testing? Are you still doing coding? I'm like, yeah. And we talked for a little bit. We're on the escalator at this point. He's like, shoot me an email later, and I'll point you toward a job opening that we have. He didn't give me the job, but he's like, hey, we have a job opening that might be something that you'd be interested in right now. It's not pen testing, but it's development for pen testers. I'm like, I'll check it out. It did. I did apply. I did get the job offer. I did accept, and I was there for a year and a half before I realized that the managerial situation there was not best for me, so I moved on. But it did give me that break from pen testing I needed, because after that I came back, got into a new team of pen testers, got to experience new things, and started rekindling that love of pen test. It gave me that break I needed. That's just purely because I was willing to talk to somebody that I half knew from years ago on an escalator. And it just pointed me in the right direction. That's going to be something else I'm going to say is networking. Just go out and talk to people. Conferences, meet people, talk to people. It can be me, it can be the person beside you, it can be whoever. Just talk to people. Watch out for burnout. I've hit that one on the head already. And not everyone is good at everything. You might absolutely want to be the best incident response person out there in the world. But I'm sorry, not everybody's cut out to it. You can do some stuff with it, but it might not be enough to get you that position. Think about it. I mean, you can definitely try it, you can definitely get better at it, but it might not be the thing for you. Just be realistic. Not everybody's good at everything. You're going to be good at something, and it's going to be good at something that's going to make you some good money, and you're going to be happy with it. But there again, choose your battles. Networking, mentoring. Find somebody at a conference that's doing something that you want. Find somebody on a video that's doing something that you want. Reach out to them, talk to them. They might give you some advice, some pointers. They might sit down and just talk to you. You might build up a sort of a mentorship with them, official or unofficial, where they might talk to you periodically and help guide you in a certain aspects of your career, or they might be able to just be a sounding board for you where you can ask them ideas and they'll give you their opinion. Whatever. It's just somebody else out there that is willing to take the time to talk to you. This industry is huge. You're going to have all kind of people in it. Some people who won't give you the time of day, some who would love to be a mentor, some people who just are willing to talk to whoever's out there and share their information. You'll find all kind of different people out there. That's why the more you can meet and greet with people, whether it's at a conference, it's on webinars, whether it's on Discord servers, whatever, just get out there and talk to people. It's going to open up so many other opportunities, possibilities, knowledge paths that you're not seeing normally. Yeah, going back, identifying your personal skills, your interests, your passions, figure out where they overlap, go after that. Path forward, I talked about that, doing blogs, reading blogs, going to Discord servers, going to webinars, Infosec meetups, your local DEF CON group, your ISC squared groups, whatever it is, your OWASP groups, whatever it is local. You might have something at your local university, who knows. Just go and meet and greet with people, talk to them, set realistic expectations of a career plan for yourself. Don't say like, okay, in 3 years I'm gonna be CEO of my own corporation. Like, more power to you if you can do that. I can't, but maybe you can. But say like, okay, I want to go in, I want to get my feet in there, I want to get experience, I want to build my way up. If you're gonna shoot for that and more than achieve it, great. Finally, the last one I was going to say here is some of the major recaps in here are, there's so many different career paths out there. This was just a tiny sampling of it. I've only experienced a tiny sampling of it. I've been doing this for 25 years, so there's so much out there. Not everybody can experience it all. That's why you need to talk to people, get their experiences, figure out what works for you. Your path is going to be different than your path, is going to be different than yours and mine. No two people have I ever met who had exactly the same path. Even that went down, that started the same, they ended up diverging. There's so much out there. Just look for it, talk to people, find what makes you happy, see if you can make a job out of it. Q&A and contact. And then of course, does anybody have their own experience with trying to find a job, maybe finding the wrong job, having to reapply, moving in-house? Does anybody have anything they want to share of their own? If not, not a problem, not a problem. Any questions then? Mm-hmm.
Just wondering if you'll be posting the slides anywhere.
I'm sorry?
Will you be posting the slides anywhere?
Hopefully yes. It won't be right now, I have to drive home, but check my Twitter over the next day or two. There should be a link on there where I've uploaded them to SlideShare or something like that. So, all right. Anyone else? Somebody pick a number. Any number. Huh? Okay, here, you get two drinks. I don't know if there's anything left back there or not. I'm just handing the, yeah, I know. Here they are. I was supposed to hand these out, I didn't. Anybody can have them, I don't need them. So, anyone else?
Any other questions?
There we go. I have a stack of them in my pocket already. I'm like, I don't need these.
Give them to production crew.
Come and get them. I'll set them over here.
So this is kind of an open-ended question. You referenced like the breadth and depth of knowledge that there is in cybersecurity, and trying to learn everything is just completely impractical, which I totally understand.
Yeah, and no worries.
I think also like one of the sort of major sources of burnout relates to feeling like you're never doing enough, whether that's on the job or off the job, just
Yep.
to kind of improve your own knowledge. So like I said, kind of open-ended, but could you talk a little bit about how you kind of balance, like maybe it's a work-life balance thing, but how you kind of take some free time and as you're also, contemplating what direction you want to go with a specialization, how many hours do you spend a night on Hack the Box or whatever?
Right. It's going to be different if you're just starting out, if you've been in it for a while and you're wanting to get improvement, or you've been in it for a long time. The amount of time you spend is going to be varying in there. How old you are is going to vary as well on how that is. Generally speaking, I would say I try to shoot for that 40 to 45 hours of work a week in there, just work. Now, outside of that, if it's something that I'm trying to, like, occasionally I try to do YouTube videos and all that. I'll jump onto Hack the Box to try out some new technique, or if there's a new box on there, I just want to try it out. I'm not treating that as part of my job. It's not a requirement for it. It's me just trying something out just for the fun of it, if you want to. And I generally don't do that until after the kids are asleep. Maybe my wife is watching her show on TV. I'm like, okay, I'll sit down, pick out my laptop, and I'll play on it for like an hour. It really varies on there. Generally speaking, I do have a home lab. I test things out on all that, but I generally do that during work hours, testing out things for a customer I'm going to be trying something out on. But for like Hack the Box, reading up new blog articles, reading all that, I generally do that between everybody else going to bed and me going to bed. But I try to get that 8 hours of sleep. I usually get 6 hours of sleep, but I shoot for that 8. And it gets harder and harder the older you get, but don't feel like you have to do that in order to show your relevance. It's more of, if you want to do it, fine. If you're wanting to do it for fun, fine. But don't feel like it's a requirement and you'll lose your job if you don't do it. Now, if that is part of your job that you have to do it, yeah, that's fine. Or if your boss says whatever, that's a discussion for you and your boss, but that's a different thing altogether. But what you were describing before about feeling like you're not doing enough, you're not doing all that, that's what is generally referred to, I'm thinking it's what you're describing, is imposter syndrome, a little bit like I'm doing this job, but I don't feel like I'm doing as much as my coworker. I'm not doing as good as my coworker or what have you. I would say probably a good 2/3 or more of the people in the industry feel that at some point. And it's just part of human nature. Because typically we see the good things that other people do. We see the bad things that we do. So there's always that dichotomy. You're not comparing apples to apples generally. And you always view yourself in more of a negative light than you do other people when it comes to accomplishments. Most people, not everybody, but in general, that's how I've understood it. So I don't have any advice on you on how to not do that. There are talks on that. There's whole webinars, there's books, there's all of that. But just be aware that that is something that is fairly common. And it doesn't mean that you really are not as accomplished as the people next to you. It's just that that's the way that our human brain, our human psyche tends to view things like that. Like you look back on time, you think like, that's why, it's the good old 80s or the good old 90s. Well, there's a lot of horrible stuff went on there. We just kind of wipe it out and just think of the good things that make our memories happy. It's sort of the opposite when we think of our own accomplishments many times. So I don't know if that really answered what you were going for, but yeah. Anyone else? If not, I think we're done then. All those tickets, they're gone.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for sticking around. Hit me up on social media, on email, and whatever. And love to talk to you.